senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. Good morning, guys.
Great to see you.
Pleasure to be with you.
I've said it so many times. The case, the 2020 case, election interference case. This is not about the court of law. It's about the court of public opinion.
You could make that argument that he's being ganged up on in the court of public opinion. From the judge's perspective, this is the way judges look at things.
Right.
The judiciary is a branch of the government. It has a level of transparency, and the public is entitled to know what the judiciary is doing. The Constitution requires transparency, especially in criminal cases, and we shouldn't be concerned with what else is happening in society, like a presidential election. This is the attitude of the court. I don't think this is that big a deal, and I'll tell you why. The judge ordered the government to present its arguments as to why the president, the former president, can still be prosecuted, notwithstanding the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. So the government went back and companeled a new grand jury and presented the same old evidence, but presented it differently and crafted an indictment that only addresses what the government says was Donald Trump's personal, non-official, non-core, non-constitutional, personal behavior on January 6th. She looked at the indictment and said, well, now justify this. Tell me what your evidence is. So the government submitted a huge, several hundred-page document, but sealed it quite properly. She then unsealed most of it, saying the public has the right to know. What she ruled on yesterday was the unsealing of the rest of it. What is the rest of it? Well, the government has come up with 57 additional co-conspirators. It hasn't named any of them because their names have been redacted. When that is unsealed, probably in the next 2 or 3 days, we'll find out who they are. We know the government says Mark Meadows, and we know the government says Rudy Giuliani, but who the other 55 are, we don't yet know.
Well, speaking of the evidence submitted by the government is set to be released today. What do you expect to see?
These names.
These names. Right.
I expect to see these names, and I don't think, if you let me wear a political hat for a minute, I don't think this is going to impact the election at all. I think it's going to divert, to the extent people will pay attention to it, with 3 weeks to go till the election, it'll divert attention from Donald Trump personally to who are these people and what was their involvement in the case.
So and obviously I only wear the political hat.
Correct. Correct.
So
I'll teach you how to wear the legal hat.
I love that. I only play a lawyer on TV. I'm not one. But to me, this is an excuse for the national mainstream legacy media to do nothing but talk about January 6th and 2020, at least for the next 4 or 5 days, rather than the economy, immigration, things that would play to Trump's hands.
You can make, that's a very valid argument, but we all know how the news cycle goes, particularly if they're going to release it on a Friday. I don't think it'll be much of unless there's a bombshell there, I don't think it'll be much of a story by Monday.
Well, when it comes to Trump's $500 million fraud judgment, we saw the judges of the New York State Appellate Court ask if there has ever been evidence in the history of law where someone has been charged with fraud and the party has allegedly been defrauded. The banks don't think they've been defrauded. Are we going to see the same sanctions on some of these prosecutors?
I don't think the prosecutors will be sanctioned, but I think that $500 million judgment will be radically reduced. It is basically a punishment to the Trump organization, a corporation that has many facets to it. It is basically a punishment to the Trump Corporation for keeping books inconsistent with the way the government says they should be kept. Well, it's not a public corporation. It's not one that you can buy stock in. So the people that own it were not affected by it. The people that loaned money to it were not affected by it. The banks that were supposedly harmed took the witness stand and said, you know what? Look Donald Trump right in the face. When you leave the presidency, if you don't go back and you're back in this business, come calling. We'll loan you more money.
Well, who's the victim, right?
There
is no victim, and that's what you mentioned at the beginning. But we are so grateful to have you, Judge Napolitano. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure,
Happy
guys.
Friday.
Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.
You too.
And when you want to go to law school, let me know.
All right.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.